Happy people. Everyone always laughs. They're like, you. I'm like, we're happy people. And then someone starts laughing, another person starts laughing. I was like, why is that so hard to believe? We're happy people. We love things. We love love. We love life. We love language. We love land. It's just we're frustrated because we live in a world that stole our love, our life, our language, and our land. Stop stealing our treasures. It's just that simple. There's a lot of children present, so I won't say what I normally say, which is stop stealing our treasures in a very different street vernacular dialect that my community understands and relates to on an emotional level versus an academic one, but we will maintain a polite conversation. I love language. I love language and I love life and I do love land and I love these things for many different reasons. It's always interesting, and first and foremost, thank you for gathering here, and thank you for gathering in the energy here and the ancestors here, depending upon what tradition you walk with. It said whenever a person goes to do good, 70,000 angels travel with them. And so there is a lot of angels in this room right now. And I thank you for bringing your posse. I bring my posse too. These are what we call homies. Apparently, Australia has a Stop the Boats campaign, so I had to smuggle them in. You must not know our people. Stop the boats. We're mechanics. We'll make even a car float. In Australia, we'll see a whole generation of Lao riders coming across the ocean. I want to share a piece and I want to share a story. There's two key things. All my work really has to do around this core principle called stories are the engine of identity. We tell them. We share them, we exchange them, but what we're really doing is we're offering ideas of what it means to be human to each other. And we're taught them at young ages. We grow up with these stories. And we hear stories about us, and people tell stories about people who are not them. And there's very harmful consequences of that. There's harmful consequences of not sharing true stories or manipulating stories, because the longer a lie is allowed to exist, the more we begin to believe it is true because we lose the memory of the time before that trauma, the time before before you lie. And so I ask you to just tell stories, and to just share honest stories with you. And there is no honest story that does not have an emotional component, because human beings are emotional creatures, and to try to tell a story without emotions is to try to not be human, and I ask you, do not do that to yourself. I was speaking at Facebook the other day, and the whole concept of the conversation at Facebook was, here's this feed in an age of hyperconnectivity, where a human being receives in 1 week more information than an adult did in their entire lifetime in 1905. That's the rate through which we're processing or actually sharing information. But the interesting thing is that's the rate through which we share information, but our emotional processor has not increased. We have the same heart that we've had for 80,000 years. And art is the education of the imagination, and poetry is the education of emotion. So I ask you to educate your imagination and to educate your heart. And while you're at it, I'll offer up this little story, maybe for the mind as well. James Baldwin once said, without the ability to define language itself enslaves. And I think about that when I think about her. And all Ernesto's images have to do with people he knows. And I'll talk about that in a moment too, but I just think about her. And I think about the Aboriginal elder I was speaking with earlier today, speaking to the young woman from India whose ancestors were stolen and forced into Fiji before she ended up here earlier today. And I think about Ernesto as Gigano and Yaki and all the lies he received growing up as he's here today. And I think about all the stories we've heard about ourselves, the lies, the gossip, as we sit here today. And I think about my people, and I think about the history and as we stand here today. And I remember that they always have these games of turning language against truth. An Aboriginal Preservation Act that really didn't preserve Aboriginals, it preserved the act. In the US, they had this concept, if I stole something and then I took it back, does anyone know what they called that? Never understood the term Indian giver. Ma Original people only gave life to pilgrims 2 centuries before the Bill of Rights. We only asked for the right to breath. Instead, they read us the right to death and death rights like white right to land, which landed us right in the middle of a reservation, and now you wonder why my hope's reserved. It's a force of habit. When those with habits hosted masses that labeled us half savage, half heathen, to the point where centuries later we are still believing we are not beautiful, but no more. Therefore, let it be known that I am a Mesoamerican Mexican born in 1975 to be part of the hip-hop generation, predestined to be malnourished in the 80s when a President Reagan told me ketchup was a vegetable. Just so he wouldn't have to buy my brother's school lunch program green beans. We learned to survive off of music, standing in line for CDs like it was a government cheese, and instead of black beans and collard greens, we ate MCs for lunch. As such, our resistance to death got us somehow labeled revolutionary, like Public Enemy. Number one of the children of the sun. The First Nations drum is the root of a history called hip-hop. Root is in before our rhyme minds in line with the divine design. We survived their vanilla ice age. We got crucified in death row records only to be reborn in a Jurassic 5 age. Those who have believed that we and Chuck D are what's wrong with the world today. Those who won't sit down, shut up, and conform. But you weren't born to conform. We were born to grow, create, rebel, grow, create, rebel. We were born in hell and died twice for surviving. The hood is proof of the afterlife. Life after death, life called breath. We are beyond Christ. We don't break bread. We break dance and break beats to feed the masses. Masses, meaning people like the Black Panthers, for the people like the word Mexica, the people like Mos Def. My people are, and Mark Gonzales represented my people, my people, my people. Without hesitancy, and the question at the end of your life is, who will you represent? And let me be clear. Till the eyes of I and I cry from Mau Mau to Mumbai, I grind for the ghetto and Gaza. In Storyland, that's where we're living right now. And everyone here, you're automatically given citizenship in Storyland. And I would say just by the nature of your breathing, but the buried are even allowed in Storyland. The breathing and the buried. And imagine that, a place where everyone gathers, whether breathing or buried, angel or energy, just to share stories. And what that world would look like, because we carry people with us. Anyone know what the second law of thermodynamics is? Y'all kind of quiet, y'all like, Energy cannot be created or destroyed. What is the human body but energy? Beyond the flesh, beyond the bones, beyond the skin, it is energy, atoms, molecules, energy, infinite. And depending upon your spiritual or sacred tradition, we say our soul is what? We are infinite. So whether you're looking at a spiritual level or you're looking at a science level, we are infinite. So we're going to be hanging out for a while on this planet, in this galaxy, in the universe. So why don't we we all start trying to figure out how to get some things right, because I don't want to hang out at a really boring house party for about 8 millennium. That would be a really horrible life, much less an afterlife or the afterlife after the afterlife. It's like, let's make some fun. Why's it got to be so negative all the time? My mother is someone who's very dear to me. And my mother is someone who's always with me. And my mother is someone who is not breathing. And my mother is one of the people who are among the buried. And I believe the buried walk with us. And we carry them with us. And sadly, though, we live in a time where so many of us are ended up amongst the buried at very early ages. And increasingly at our own hand. I know in Australia, the #1 cause amongst youth for death is taking your own life. It actually echoes the US. I believe we're the only 2 countries in the planet where that's the #1 cause of death for those under 18, taking your own life. We're winning at killing ourselves. And I think about that, and I think about that as carrying the memory of my mother for 20 years around her suicide and just what she was holding and what questions we never knew how to ask her. And I thought about that when it was the 20th, quote, anniversary of her life ending or transforming, or as we say, walking on. And I always thought, like, what do I need to tell her? And then I realized it wasn't just her, that there was something I needed to say. There was something I needed to say to my dad. There was something I needed to say to me. And there was something I needed to say to you. And so I just want to offer up this letter to you. For all of you who carry what we call survivor's guilt on so many different levels. The pain of still being here when the ones you love are gone. And somehow we carry a weight in our lower back, in our soul, in our stress with that energy. That if you could write them a letter, those who've walked on, what would you tell them? If I could write a letter in this perfect moment, what would I tell you? Who? You, who is one, me. The first person I owe an apology to for failing to fulfill the most basic of human lifelines at times. I've lived lifetimes inside wounds I had no right to own. Yes, it's not my fault. That was never my question. It was, Mama, why didn't you love me enough to stay? A question I've tried to answer and only found other grown children asking the same question. I've sought guidance in the tears of lovers who sat from the age of 8 to 10, sitting on a doorstep waiting for their father in another country to come join them, to come back home. I know ladies who've lost loved ones to addictions, to streets, to needles in arms, and we wound each other beautifully. I am sorry to them, but first to myself, forever thinking I was not worthy of being loved for a lifetime. It is no wonder that in relationships, so many of us, we learn to leave first. No more. I deserve to be present in the presence of this present moment perfectly, too. In this perfect moment, I always think of my dad. Every evening, I wonder what right does a son have to tell a father who lost his wife, let go? Like that demon you hold of the last memory of her not breathing, the ambulance in the garage, the failed first attempt in the bathtub. Dad, let go of her, and the decades of pain you tried to talk her through. She refused, and she haunts you, not because of what you did, but because she misses you. You, who has been the roadmap of my masculine and feminine in the absence of energy, and brown and male, and hands weathered from mechanics and fields and drafts and guns. And Dad, put down the tears in your palm. Hold me instead. I am ready to do the same. 3. To my sisters and my sisters, to my brothers from other mothers and all the other OVs of the world, exhale, whether you are indigo energy, lavender laughter, amber energy, whatever color you are when you are crunk on the dance floor, bluish bruises and blinking breath, whatever creative way you say, I live in color, say, I live in color, no matter the gray LA skyline, the NY gritty city grind, the bleaching creams they sold us, the screams when they sold us, exhale. Like breathing's lessons underwater, exhale. Like your cop's gun to your dome, exhale. Like lover turning sunset in the vanilla sky, exhale. Remember, we are the sound of color so beautiful, we even turn dreams damp with the sweat of breath when we make life for. And this perfect moment is you. Misfragmented pink perfection, who I want to tell you every second you breathe is your most perfect moment. Thank you. Some days I feel like my heart is large enough to house and hold all of humanity, with those who are wounded young and often receiving the biggest rooms where the walls are made of angel arms so they can continually hold you whenever needed. There is a drum in the distance. Your father, he's dancing in the desert. Every now and then he kicks up a cloud storm to rain because you are thirsty. This is not a metaphor. This is a prescription written from researching my own pain. Your name is derived from lute. It's played like oud. It is all music, isn't it? This out-of-chord life, the different keys, the sorrows, composition, the scales. It is all movement. Your soul is all music. Your heart is all music. The sorrow, all music. The beauty, all music. The pain, all music. And I want you to know that I hear you. It's like the echoing energy of a familiar wound or a familiar womb. Your voice is my lifeline in this healing process. Beautiful sister, wounded warriors, powerful soldiers, I hear you. In 1975, Aliva was born. My mom's womb was a house party. From a beat I was torn, she was born in 45, like an LP, 45 alive. It's like rhythm we beat, even though she cut her own soundtrack in October 89 and suicide with us. It's more than a rhyme. In a world of clowns, are you more than a mime? Am I more than my mind? Am I more than my mom's? Are we more than the scars that they cut on our palms? We are more than the bombs they dropped on our village. We are soul-style Darwin. It's like survival of the illest. You argue, I'm a realist. I argue pure dreamers. We are more than Sarah Palin's Arizona Grim Reapers. We're old school like beepers. We're ancient like Coptics. Our ancestors are albums, and best believe I will cop it from Sudan, Sri Lanka, Turtle Island, the Gaza, one breath, one flesh, one alma, mi ama. I am all that is left of those who have left. You are all that is left of those who have left. We are all that is left of those who are left. Respect, respect, respect. I want to leave you with one last thought, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of the stories. All the images behind me, Selena was shot today, actually several years ago. I believe it's nearly 2 decades now since her killing by a person. Skulls, which to our community and in our culture are not negative things. They're just reminders of a transition. And that's why they're so beautiful at times. Honor the treaties, the things that we just ask in the treaties, whether they're of law or they're just of a word. Honor them. Don't break that which you have made. Anxiety and depression. The U.S. actually has more prescription medication for depression and anxiety than we do adults. It's an amazing statistic and a study for those who actually look when we get into the field of global health, which is part of my background. And just stars and moons. All of these, I invite you to talk to Ernesto about. I'll actually be upfront in having them in copies within them. and take them as gifts, and take them as stories, and take them as dreams, and take them as pain, and take them as possibility. And if you don't ever like what anyone has ever done, know that there's always room to change this story. For example, and this is the last story I want to leave you with. How many people here have ever gone through immigration control at any country? Even just entering. I'm not talking about like having to fill out all the immigration, just visiting even a place. Like okay, do I get the stamp on the passport or not? Did I waste the $1,500 ticket or not? That's, what's really going through your mind. It's like you're sweating. You're like, I paid a lot of money for this ticket, son. Why are you sweating me? Like, just give me a stamp. Like, I'll put my own sticker on it, all right? Are you scared you're going to run out of ink? I'll put the own sticker on it. Like, come on, it's cool. Aren't we cool? Come on, let me in. So for those of you, it's interesting. I had this moment, and it was in the UK. And I don't know how many of you do this, but you end up in these surreal moments where you're looking at things and you're like, wait a minute, I feel like I've been here before. It's kind of like a deja vu, or maybe it's because you've played it over in your head so much that you're actually like, oh my God, it's happening, it's happening, it's happening, it's happening. So I had that moment. It was at the UK Border Patrol, and I walked up to them, and they're like, Mr. Gonzales. And of course, they look at all the stamps because there's a lot, and they're like, what are you doing here? And I had this kind of like surreal like moment where everything just froze, and it was like Matrix. I didn't do the jump like kick split like because I know I would have hurt myself, but it was like that slow moment, and I just had this conversation with him in my head like, what do you mean what am I doing here? Like, don't you remember me? We've known each other a really long time, you and I. Several hundred years to be exact. You came and visited me for several centuries. And then you left so quick. And I don't know why, but I don't know, maybe because it's left so quick that you got confused. But when you left, you took a lot of my stuff with you. So why am I here? I've come to visit my stuff. And this is the beautiful part of language, freezing time, reshaping it, molding it clay. Whether it's past, whether it's heart, whether it's politic, whether it's possibility, whether it's family, whether it's personal, whether it's spiritual, whether it's social, everything is moldable. There is no laws of physics within story. There is no infinite wound within story. Everything is on the table for recreating. And that is a powerful, powerful blueprint for reimagining how humanity interacts with one another. I sometimes actually like to have a little bit of fun, like writing letters to people that no longer exist or that will actually never listen to me, which is quite a few people. And so 3 letters to leave you with. Dear British Museum, what type of people charge a fee for others to see the property they have stolen? Have you forgotten? Have you forgotten that everything that is renamed can still be reclaimed? We are the Somalias. We are the Samoas. We are the Americas, and we want our property back. Sincerely, Mark Gonzales. Letter 2. Dear Christopher Columbus, you cannot discover a land 70 million people are living on. Sincerely, Mark Gonzales. And this one I leave for you. And this is one I share in pretty much wherever in the planets. It's a really interesting time where bigots are feeling really confident for some reason. And we keep on thinking like we have to explain ourselves to them. Dear bigots, I am a Muslim. My prayers do not need your permission. Sincerely, the Una.